Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name is Clint Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 55 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Okay, I'm going to take a second before I progress on this. It's the next morning. Been able to do some thinking about layout and all the things to do, so I've got a strategy going forward. Now, I noted in the comments, somebody hit some comments on the previous videos. The last video, I got this 2-4 dimension. I called it 1-4. I called it this dimension 1-4. Yeah, okay, I get it. I'm going to make mistakes like that when I'm talking that don't matter in the big picture. When I'm trying to keep track of multiple dimensions, if the action shot, what I do, this is all live. I can't redo this. I can't uncut this stone and then go back. If I want to show you how to do this, I'm going to show you how it's done. And if I mix up a dimension at some point, get over it, okay? If you can do it, prove it. Put a video up, show me you're doing it with all perfect words. You can edit it to the end of time and just whatever. But this is real world stuff. And you're going to learn that if you complain and you smart it off to your master when you're doing it, he's going to tell you to pound sand, hit the road. And then you're out of luck. Okay? So you got to understand what he means, not what he says. But before we go forward, I wanted to show you a couple things just to help clarify using these tools. Okay? Now, a handset doesn't have a sharp edge. It just has a flat end, and the sharp edges need to be square along each edge. If the edge is rounded, it isn't effective. And when I talked about yesterday a couple of times when I said this doesn't have a good register, I wanted to show you what I mean by that. Now, if you use a big handset like this 4-inch versus this 2-inch, see the difference? This has to make good contact along the majority of this line in order to make a good break, because if it doesn't, it's just going to crush crystals to level it out. Now, I picked this up and we'll see if that, now see, that's a relatively poor register. See, it doesn't sit down very well. And so I would be better off to use something with a shorter span that seats more, that gets a better register on there to break that off or to work it off. I can also work this surface down. The goal I'm going for is a perfect register, as perfect as I can get it. Same thing with this. I want that to be perfect. The problem is that if you put, like say you take a diamond saw and you cut this perfectly flat, maybe right on here to get a good register, there's a really good chance that you're going to leave witness to that diamond saw along the back of the space here. Or, in order to avoid that, you're not going to go as deep as you possibly could, and you're going to leave a little bit of a lip on the stone. And you may need to clear that off. Now you can't, because there's nothing to hit. So, it's always a judgment call. When I get cutting and I get working, and I'm not a cutter. I don't do this full-time, 40 hours a week, bang, 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 just cutting dies and pitching corners and everything. I can do it, but that's not my specific training. My training is to be able to do it to complement the carving and the sculpture work that I do. When you're working, these edges have to be nice and square. The sharper they are, the better it'll cut. Now, you'll see me cut, and I may wipe it on my apron or pants or whatever. That's because the stone will crush and you'll get little bits of powder that build up on here, and that interferes with your register, because what that does is that's a little shock absorber. And so before it can cut this stone, it has to crush through whatever's on top, and that may shift your tool off the line, hopefully to the outside, not to the inside. Oh God, and then you take off a big chunk and you've screwed it all up and you got to fix the whole line, if you can fix it. So you'll see me cut, and I'll keep checking my edge to make sure it's clean. I also try to cut, and when I hit, I try to run the tool off and not follow through, because I don't want to hit what's left. It may break it. It may also leave a stun or a white mark. Now, there's a big push right now with people that are carving, okay? I won't get into what I think about that, where they break a lot of things out to make like a sunburst or whatever. And they do it, you know, they saw lines in and then they break it all out. And it has all these white marks all over it. Let's put a nice, see if I can get this to where it'll show. Let's put a nice white stun right there. Now, there's a white mark right there. In my business, that's a fail, okay? I want to cut this whole job and not have any of those white marks showing, because that shows you what I did and how I cut it. The goal is to not have those. They are not an artistic accomplishment, they are an artistic failure. Okay, and the goal is to waste off every stun and every white mark and not have them there. Not having to camouflage them with a torch or sandblast or Sharpie or whatever else. You want to have them in a place where you could theoretically carefully walk them out, and that has to do with where you place the hit. That's why I wasn't going in the very bottom right here, because down there I can't. If I'm up a little bit, I can hit that and just very carefully, and I might have a little white mark right on the very edge, but that's not even going to look like a stun, because it looks like the way the stone broke, because the stone can bruise itself that way. So, like I said, practice on junk stone, okay? Don't practice on this good stone once you finally get it. Go out and find some junk somewheres, whether it's granite or whether you're working with other stone, and practice on it. You're gonna make scrap. But once you get to, like where I am, once you get to this level that from the day I started, I couldn't have scrap. I've only had one piece ever break, we threw away. Sitting over here was a piece of a bird bath we did in serpentine, and when we're pitching the edges out, it broke just under the circle. So that's the only thing I've ever used, and that stone was horrible to cut. It cut me all to pieces, because when I was pitching it, it spit all in my arm and cut me all up. It's not good stone to work. But all this other stuff, never. Everything that's come in has gone out, and it's all been accepted, okay? And you can't have failure when you're doing professional work. So, but I want to talk a little bit about register and how to get those tools. If they don't set, that's why you can get a really good break here, is because that's fully there, and you rock it back on that edge, and you can lay into it and you can pull off some stone. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this stone around so I can work on this corner. It'll be closer to my hose, so I don't have to pull anything down, and just swing the crane a little bit so the suction will reach, and I won't be out here far away from everything. I'm not going to make a point of telling y'all how to rig stone, how to lift stone, because like I said, this is life and death. You're going to have to take the responsibility to get training from somebody. I'm not going to put it out there and say, well, Button said to do it this way, and I lost my foot, or it killed my little boy, because it will. This will kill you. This weighs as much as some cars, okay? And if you drop it on your foot, you're not going to have a foot. If it falls on you in the wrong way, it will kill you. So I'm not going to get into showing people how to rig stuff and saying do it this way and do it that way, because some knucklehead out there that needs to be carving ivory soap instead of carving granite will end up getting hurt. And I don't want to be in that spot. But I'm going to go ahead and pick this up, to swing it around, and get that cut. Like I said, I've seen some really sketchy stuff on eBay. People using engine hoist that they might just as well be jumping off a cliff. They're taking so many risks, it's just crazy. Something that, the reason I've got the equipment that I have in terms of having manual hoist instead of electric hoist and having geared trolleys where I have to pull this chain to run it back and forth is that this allows me to control this one link at a time versus an electric hoist where you stab, and it goes up, down, and you stab. When those work great, they're great. When they don't, they're dangerous. And when you're working alone, especially like what I do, if I can control a turn or a lift by going one link at a time, click, it's slow, but it's very, very determined. I know what I'm doing. So that's just what I do. But push trolleys where you just shove it back and forth, wow. When you're dealing with serious weight, that's a serious liability, in my opinion. And I don't want it. And so that's not what I use. And when the other thing that I like is if I'm going to turn a stone, I've got two hoists. I've got, two sets of chains, two lifts that I can pick up with. And just having a second lift, if you're going to turn something, allows you to not be under it, physically pushing something that weighs tons or trying to lift it that weighs a lot. Even if you're rugged enough to do it, it'll still slip and fall and kill you. So I can hook an extra hoist on there to turn it. If you rent a professional crane that comes out like a mobile crane to install something, you request a crane that has two hoists on it, and they'll have two actual hooks, lines with hooks on it, so they can pick it up off the truck, and then they can take the two of them and turn them very easily and in a very controlled manner. They can do it all in the air, so you're not going to pop a corner off on the ground because you didn't realize there was a rock just under the surface of the grass right there. So two hoists is how I have my studio set up, and I've got some extra hoists that I can rig up if I need to, either to pull with or to turn with or whatever. But be really careful turning stones and lifting stones, because this is a deadly business. Let's move over here. I want to show you something I just noticed. Okay, the lights balanced out pretty well. I cleaned this yesterday. After we got it in, we broke the stone off and I washed them and got them all cleaned up and everything. And as this has dried, I've been able to see the reason that this broke like this. It's got a line of inclusion right here. Now, we're gonna break all this off. We'll have to go to this depth and clear this, and they'll take the vast majority of that off. But you can see where there's structure right there, where there was a mineral inclusion in this stone, and it's darker right there. It's not going to be a problem with this broken stone. The reason we're doing this base with rock pitch bottom portion, about 2/3 will be rock pitch, is mainly so when the lawnmower crashes into it, it's not going to be as noticeable. This is meant to take abuse like rough stone will. And when the cemetery maintenance people weed eat and mow and everything, it's likely to bugger up around the bottom of the stone. So if this was cut nice and pretty, then it wouldn't tolerate it as well. But we're going to clean this off, and we're going to go down to this deep spot, which is right here, and I'm just going to straighten this up to the top and make it square, just right here on this corner, to see what we've got. And then we'll determine the rest of this. We probably have to go in wherever this levels out to be even with the top. We're probably going to, wherever that line is, if we go down 6 inches, we're going to have to go in at least 1 inch, if not 2, in order to get nice consistent breaks. Because if we look at this side, this is how you read your stone. Even when you're breaking on the rift and it breaks nice and straight, splits nice and straight like this, you still have a transition in the direction sometimes. And we've got obvious transition here where this is scooped. It broke really straight and flat up there, but over here it didn't. It's probably related to these inclusions. So when you get a stone that's all sawed, this is one of the challenges that's going on now, is some of the quarries have gone to sawing their stone completely instead of splitting it out of the quarry. And that means you can't read it at all. You don't know what you're getting in terms of stone and how it will break when you break it, because you're getting 6 flat sides. Good luck, buddy. If you turn it the wrong way, you may not even figure out which way the head grain is until after you're working. And they may send it to you the wrong way. Even if you order it one way, they may have the head grain oriented a different way, you know, cut it out of die stock instead of base stock. And just the way they run the grain, wow, you know, you can have a lot of trouble. So we're going to just cut this in. I'm just going to start into this with hand tools and use a carpenter square to measure straight down to get square here. And if the carpenter square is too big, we'll use just a tri-square and try to set that up and figure it out. And that'll tell me how deep I've got to go here. And then that'll tell me what I got to do on the rest of this face to clean it up. Okay, we're going to get started with a light like this. You can see how this is a very obvious chunk with this going right here. So I'm going to work a little bit of this just to feel it, so I got an idea if this goes really deep. I don't think it does, because see, it's broke off here and then that scoops there. But what we'll end up doing, this is my deep spot right here. I'm going to get some red pencils. I'm all out of red pencils, and I can't see this yellow crap any better than y'all can on the thing. But I got a whole bunch of them, and I hate wasting them, but I used up all my red pencils. I had a huge box of them. It took me 15 years to use them all up. Had hundreds of them. They're all gone, so got to spend some money. But I'm going to just feel that out a little bit to see how it feels, and then I'm just going to probably, I've got the diamond saw, I'll lay a couple of cuts, and I'll just cut a strip right here and go in, because there's no way I'm going to avoid this. This is the reality of this whole face. This is going to dictate the whole side of the stone. So once that's cut, we'll go from there. That's going to break. Let's knock it off. See, I got a crack that's on top of that. That may be a part of the noise. Yeah. It's this crack right here. So I think we're good. By cutting this top edge open first, if I sink it right here, there's going to be a curve. It's going to shoot that dust out here at me. By relieving that top, I provide a channel for the dust to travel. And I can shoot it right into the front. When your blade gets hot, the bottom of the cut will get hot, and you'll see a little bit of spark. Be careful. When you see a spark go around the edge and shoot off, you're going to thermal your blade. You got to back off and let it cool off a little bit. Keep going. It'll get hot. It'll overheat the diamonds. The diamonds will fail to grab and they'll shoot right out of your hand, and go upside your head or break a stone or something. Check my square. Looks pretty square to me. Still got to take a whole bunch out of there. Now the reason I don't want to just break this really hard, see it's tipping in a little bit. And if I push this really hard, it's going to undercut and it ends up making all these little cracks if I keep hitting it. Little stuff that I could probably pick right off. And I don't want all those cracks because those are fractures in the stone and they ain't going to heal. Now, we're going to waste all this off. This is practice for you, okay? We still want to be able to produce a perfect edge every time on purpose because we can do it. So instead of cutting this and 9-pointing up to the edge and having it pop and bust out, I went ahead and got it close. Then I tipped it with you can use a straight chisel or a 2-blade, or this is just a 3-blade bush chisel that was where I could grab it. I tipped it back to that line and now I can reduce this off, and because that bevel is there, I'm less likely to blow that edge off as easily. I can work in and then I can cut down and produce a nice straight edge. And it's good to practice, but see, even if we go back to that edge, this is still deeper than that. I don't think that's going to clear it up, but we're going to get close to it, clean all this off, and then see how much deeper it's got to go, because that'll reach down towards it. And we're close, but it's not perfect. looks like this 2'4" dimension is going to be adequate. Clean it up. I'm almost there. I got a little bit of room here left, so I got to push this down, and I'll be within ½ an inch there. Because we're going to break this, if we do this top dimension 6 inches, but it goes in, it'll cut in a certain amount, whether it cuts in 4 inches or 2 inches, whatever it does. And we'll balance that out with the die. We figure out what we're going to do with the die. I got a couple of ideas trying to figure how to deal with that joint and top, and I want the height, and I'm trying to figure the path of least resistance to the paycheck. That'll look good. But once I cut this, I don't have to cut this whole panel to that height, to that perfect shape, because I'm going to waste all this off. So I need to do all of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to determine the dimension of my top versus my bottom, which is probably going to be about 1/3 on the top, more than half. And, you know, technically it should be 1.6, whatever the, you know, golden ratio is and all that to make this balance with that. And this should be, yeah, maybe we'll do it. I hadn't really decided. I didn't promise any of that. So, all I have to do is decide if I'm going down 6 inches, and I have to cut a 6-inch strip all the way down this side. Then I've got my register. And once I cut that 6-inch strip, especially if the bottom of that strip is the top of this that I've got to break off, I cut that in, and whether it's got to be 2 inches deep or 1.5 inches deep over here, it's pretty tall, it'll be, you know, 3 inches deep. Then I can just waste this off and do it in one pass instead of screwing it up, making it look pretty, and then just throwing it in the trash. So that's what the goal is. So we're really close here. We're going to do just a little bit more, and we'll probably have to wrap this video up. That's not absolutely perfect, but it's close enough to understand that this is going to work. So now what I'm going to do, based on the dimensions of this stone, to get a good break, if I've got, just say we do 6 inches and 10 inches, just for round numbers, okay, because this is 16, this is 1/4 tall. If I have to break 10 inches, I have to get a pretty good hole up here. I've got to be in more than just 1/4 inch. So I'm probably going to go in, I don't know, I might go in 2 inches in order to break it and have the nominal dimensions be this 2'4", because I'll go in and break, and we'll have high points that stick out that far. But we'll go in and we'll go down here, and I'll measure, I have a regular little tape measure. I'll measure down 6 inches, and I'll put a mark. Probably what I'll do is I'll just set this to 6 inches, so it's 6 inches deep, and I'll cut, I don't know, 6, 4, whatever, pieces down the side. I may even just turn this up on edge, because you got way more leverage pushing down than you do pushing forward. Just work a little faster. When you're doing flat, it's easy, because doing a core vertical surface flat is a little trickier. And when you can make it easy, make it easy. But I'll measure 6 inches down so I can put plumb blocks at 6 inches. Then I'll just cut a strip right down through here, and leave it. I'll probably try to get pretty close to 6. I don't know if I'll go much below it, but at 6 I can go. Then I can have a plane at 6 inches, just a strip that represents that transition from the rough shell rock pitch to the scotia. And I could put a check on it, and then I could break everything while I've still got mass up here to hold it, because if I carve this first and then start breaking, a whole big piece of that will blow right off, buddy, and you're done. So we'll have to lay it out that way and do it. First of the week, it's Friday afternoon. First of the week, I want to start on rubber, start putting silicone on her, and I'll put all my silicone on her, get all set up, and then while that cures, I'll come over here and work on this. And then when the silicone's dry, I'll go put more silicone on it, and I'll have to do 2 or 3 courses like that, and then we'll have to dig out everything wood-wise in order to build an armature of support for the mother, and so I can get that cast and we can get that done. And we'll have to decide what we're going to do. I've got a couple of ideas I'm thinking with this die, and I really want the height, even if I've got to surrender a little bit of the thickness front to back. People won't notice that as much as if it's another couple inches taller. That'll make it even more impressive. It'll be a big stone. So, and we don't have any restrictions as far as I understand. This isn't going to be under restriction, so we're plenty big enough. So I think for right now I'm going to wrap this up and get on to the next one. My name's Clint Button here at Carolina Sculpture Studio. I'm a granite sculptor with the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.